She folded the note once and laid it on the tray beside the combs, like a thing that had been cataloged and would now be ignored. She picked up the next lock and measured it between finger and thumb. "People who break promises throw stones," she said without heat. "It's what they have to lift." Kong watched her in the mirror. The gray in his eyes looked less like cold metal, more like river stone after rain. "Let them throw," he said quietly. "We'll build with what they meant to shatter." In the mirror, their faces sat near without meaning to. For a moment the image felt like a vow wearing hair and skin. Blessing finished the corrective work, and on instinct, maybe hubris, maybe blessing, she slipped a thin gold cuff onto one lock near the back, tucked so it flashed only when he moved. A conversation piece only if the other person knew what gold meant when it was thread small. He touched it once, surprised. He did not remove it. "You'll need a name," Sunwoo said from the door, the soldier returning to the part of speech where chatter was allowed. "For the studio. I mean the public face. If we're going to pull your clients from Ash, they should know where to land." Blessing looked at the blank wall. In her mind it wore frames. Faces, coils, braids, smiles like sunrise over dark water. Calabar light trapped in soul glass. "Promise House," she said. The words arrived in her mouth as if they'd been waiting outside all day. Not a salon. A house. For the making of covenants between scalp and hand. Sunwoo grinned, his first human crack in professional stone. "Strong. And #able. Order a sign," Do-hyun said dryly, as if hashtags were a business expense he would now have to justify to a ledger. Kong stood, the cape unfurling. His locks lay against his shoulders like lines drawn with care. He looked less armed somehow. Not weaker. Stronger in a way that required less noise. "Perfect," he said. "Healthy," she corrected, and he accepted the correction like a gift. Outside, the rain had become a curtain turned to threads. The brick sat on the sidewalk like a story that had failed to stop anything. Someone somewhere was typing ugly words with the clarity of a drunk truth that wasn't true. And Blessing imagined the comments like gnats swarming a fruit stand. She would not be the fruit. She would be the vendor with a fly whisk and prices that made you stay anyway. Her phone finally buzzed, again and again, a hive at war. She didn't look. Not yet. Instead, she took out her other phone, the one in her mind where she kept her aunt's voice. "If you can choose between shouting and building, child, choose the hammer. It's slower, also it lasts." "I'll need 3 assistants," Blessing said, slipping into work voice that turns lists into a future. "One who knows color, because I won't pretend I do. One who speaks soft Korean to people who come scared. One who can manage appointments and not lie. All will be good with hair. 2 will be better with people." "Send names," Do-hyun said. "I don't have names yet," Blessing admitted. "I'll have faces by morning." Kang's gaze moved once more along the edges of the room, as if measuring whether it would hold what she intended to place. "You have my backing," he said simply. "And your shadow?" she asked, meeting the gray. "I will take your backing, but I won't live in your shadow." He didn't smile, but the room tilted, just barely, as a line between them pulled taut. "Back, not front," he said. "We said that already." Her shoulders lowered a fraction. An agreement confirmed is a small pillar. They locked the temporary studio for the night. On the sidewalk, the cars waited with the patience of creatures trained not to startle. The streetlight above them popped and blinked, then died. For a heartbeat, the world disappeared. The kind of pitch of dark in which bad choices shrug into being. A motorbike tore past, camera shutter swallowing the night in clicks. The rider's helmet flashed silver once. By the time Do-hyun reached the curb, the taillight was already smeared red at the corner, gone. Sunwoo's phone lit his jaw from below. "It's online," he said. "Pictures of the 2 of you. Headlines calling her the Mafia's girl." Blessing inhaled. It came in like a tide and went out like one too, with the same salt. "They'll name me before I name myself if I let them," she said. "Then don't let them," Kong replied, voice like a steady gate in rain. "We'll say it first. Promise House," Sunwoo repeated, and the air felt different with the words in it, like plaster meeting wet lath. Kong turned to Blessing, and for the first time the distance between power and the person he protected narrowed to something human. "You start tomorrow," he said. "But if you want to start now," his eyes flicked to the blank wall where frames would hang. "Sometimes the only way to sleep is to nail one thing up that belongs there." Blessing looked at the wall and imagined a photograph of a woman whose face had been small when she sat and large when she stood. Before in gray, after in color. She imagined writing a caption beneath in 2 languages. "Healthy is beautiful." She imagined girls who looked like her pausing at this window on a Korean night and seeing themselves instead of an error on a page. "One thing," she said. "We nail one thing up tonight." There were no frames yet. No prints. So she took from her pocket the sticky note she had folded and carried like a prayer and smoothed it onto the wall with her palm. It looked ridiculous and perfect, tiny in that white expanse, like the first seed you put into a large pot because you trust what eyes cannot yet see. Sunwoo laughed softly, not mocking. "A start," he said. "Evidence," Blessing corrected. "That we began." Kang's phone buzzed then, a vibration that carried through his bones. He glanced down. "Mira is coming to her senses," he said. "Offers already arriving in my inbox with paragraphs about misunderstanding and cultural differences." The words cultural differences came out with an edge, as if he'd had to teach this city the price of those 2 words too many times. "What will you do?" Blessing asked. Morning broke with a pale blush over Itaewon. The street outside the temporary studio smelled faintly of rain and roasted chestnuts from a vendor wheeling his cart down the lane. Blessing stood under the awning, her braid cuffs glinting in the light, and tried to slow her breathing. It wasn't fear, not exactly. It was weight, the kind that pressed on you when you realized people were already whispering your name into rooms you hadn't entered. "The Mafia's girl," the headlines hissed online. "Thief," the comment section spat. And yet, when she opened her messages, she saw small sparks of loyalty. Women asking where she was now, young men pleading for her hands again. So here she stood. Promise House. The name sounded too big for 4 walls with boxes still stacked in corners. But maybe a house was less about how wide its floor spread and more about who could rest inside it. Doohyun arrived first, carrying 2 potted plants in each arm like they weighed nothing. "Orders came in this morning," he said flatly, setting them down by the window. Sunwoo followed, juggling a paper bag of kimbap rolls and fresh towels. "Fuel," he announced with a grin. "Because nobody builds an empire on an empty stomach." Blessing smiled, surprised at how natural it felt to share a laugh with men whose job titles were enforcer and bodyguard. By mid-morning, her chosen assistants began to arrive. The first was Nari, a soft-spoken colorist with hair dyed lavender at the tips. She bowed nervously, clutching her resume as if it were a shield. "I was let go," she confessed, cheeks pink. "They said I was too experimental. Customers didn't want green highlights." Blessing looked at the streak of lavender shimmering in the girl's bun and saw courage wrapped in fear. "Your colors will bloom here," she said simply. The second was G1. A single mother in her 30s with tired eyes but hands that moved like music when she twisted braids. She had been rejected from larger salons because she brought her little boy to interviews. "I need work that respects both my craft and my child," she said quietly, her jaw tight with dignity. "You'll have both," Blessing replied. The third was Adeola, a Nigerian exchange student who braided in dorm rooms to survive. When Blessing had first spoken to her in Yoruba at a market stall, Adeola had burst into tears of relief at hearing her mother tongue. She was younger, unpolished, but her fingers carried the same rhythm Blessing had learned under Lagos' son. "You'll learn with me," Blessing told her. "We'll keep the roots strong together." By noon, the 3 women stood with her in the middle of the room, their faces lit by possibility. The studio no longer felt empty. It felt like a vessel waiting to be filled. The first clients trickled in hesitantly, whispering, glancing at the street as though expecting someone to stop them. One was the university boy Blessing had twisted days before. He walked in with 3 friends, all nervously clutching photos on their phones. "My Hyung said you're the best," one of them blurted. We don't care what people write online. Blessing's throat tightened. She guided them to the chairs, set her assistants to work, and let the hum of combs and laughter wash away the poison of rumors. As the day deepened, more arrived. Women who had been too afraid to try styles outside the city's norm. Men who had seen her patience in a single session and wanted more. Even a curious blogger, this time not one paid by Mira, snapped photos of the room filled with bright braids, glossy twists, and gentle hands. Still, the smear campaign pressed in. On her phone, Blessing saw a photo taken through the rain-streaked glass of her apartment. Her and Kong Min-suk standing close in the temporary studio, his locks between her fingers. The caption screamed, "Proof! Mistress of the Mafia." Her stomach dropped. The comments burned. She shoved the phone into her apron pocket and forced herself to smile at the next client. That evening, when the last customer left, Kong arrived. He moved quietly, but the room seemed to steady itself at his entrance. His gray eyes scanned the new plants, the wall where Blessing had stuck her folded note, the three women bustling to clean. "You've built quickly," he said. Blessing straightened, meeting his gaze. "Faster than they can break me." That was the deal. He inclined his head, a faint flicker of approval. "And yet the noise grows." "It's only noise," she said, though her chest still ached from the words she had read. "I will not let them write me as someone I'm not." Min-suk's gaze lingered on her, something unspoken softening at the edges. Then, almost imperceptibly, his hand brushed the lock where she had slipped a thin gold cuff days before. He hadn't removed it. "Noise fades," he murmured. "Roots endure." For a moment, silence filled the studio, not tense, not heavy. Simply present. The kind of silence that hummed like an unfinished song waiting for the next note. But outside the walls of Promise House, storms gathered. That night, Mira sat in her office with Hannah and Soo-jin, her face pale with rage. "He gave her 24 hours, she hissed. "And now she has his protection. We must cut her down before she climbs higher." Hannah smirked. "Let the city believe she sleeps her way to clients. Respect dies faster that way." Mira's lips curled into something almost serpentine. "Then spread it. Make her name taste like scandal." And so the whispers thickened, threads of malice woven through alleys, bars, and online boards. The Nigerian thief. The Mafia's mistress. The foreign girl who tricks customers with exotic styles. Blessing heard the echoes, but she had customers waiting, assistants learning, and roots to honor. She refused to bend. Still, some nights, when she sat alone with her aunt's wooden comb in hand, she wondered how long a promise could hold against a storm this loud. The city never really slept. Even at 2 in the morning, neon lights glowed over Itaewon's streets, painting the pavement with fractured color. Blessing sat on her thin mattress, the hum of her heater loud against the silence of her room. Her phone screen burned in her hand. The latest post had gone viral. A blurred photo of her walking beside Min-suk, their shoulders close under the rain. The caption read, "From thief to concubine, how far can braids carry you?" The comments were venom disguised as wit. Foreigners always come to take shortcuts. She trapped him with her hair, that's all. Promise House? More like Mistress House. Blessing locked the phone, set it face down. Her chest felt like it was being carved hollow with each word she swallowed. She wanted to scream into the night, but her mother's voice whispered in memory, "Don't fight mud with your bare hands. Build the ground higher instead." So she sat still. She breathed. And she promised herself she would arrive at the studio in the morning with her head high. By dawn, Promise House was crowded. Loyal clients had lined up outside, some clutching umbrellas, others shoving hands into pockets against the cold. Inside, Nari was mixing bold colors for a student who wanted sunset streaks. Ji-won braided a child's hair while humming softly. Adeola watched Blessing closely, mirroring each twist and motion like an apprentice hungry to master every detail. But the tension in the room was sharp. Whispers seeped in with the customers. "Did you hear? The Mafia boss visits here every night. They say she stole thousands from her old salon. Maybe that's why it's called Promise House, because promises are cheap." Blessing worked in silence, her fingers steady though her heart throbbed like a wound. She could not stop the words. All she could do was twist, braid, nurture. Every crown she built was her rebuttal. That afternoon, the storm broke. A news crew arrived unannounced, cameras flashing, microphones thrust forward. "Miss Ocone," a reporter barked in accented English. "Are you the Mafia boss's mistress? Is this shop a front for laundering?" The room froze. Adeola dropped a comb. Nari paled. Ji-won covered the child's ears. Blessing's mouth went dry. She wanted to answer, wanted to shout no. "This is my craft, my blood, my right." But the words snagged in her throat. And then the door opened. Kang Min-suk stepped inside, gray eyes like storm clouds finally splitting open. The cameramen staggered back instinctively, their equipment trembling in their hands. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "This woman," he said evenly, "is my loctician. The best in this city. She is not a thief. She is not my mistress. She is a master of her art. And anyone who slanders her slanders me." The room held its breath. His voice was calm, but the weight beneath it was iron. Even the cameras seemed to hesitate before capturing his face. The reporter stammered, "But, Mr. Kang, you came here looking for dirt," Min-suk interrupted softly. "All you'll find is truth. Take your lies elsewhere, or you'll find nothing at all." It wasn't a threat shouted. It was a sentence spoken like fact. And everyone knew facts were harder to outrun. The crew retreated, muttering apologies. Outside, their van roared away, headlights scattering into the traffic. Blessing exhaled shakily, her fingers still curled around her comb. She hadn't moved the whole time. Her assistants stared wide-eyed, as though witnessing scripture written in flesh. Min-suk turned then, his gaze falling on Blessing. For once, his expression wasn't shielded. There was anger there, yes, but beneath it, something startlingly human. Concern. "You should not carry this alone," he said quietly. Blessing swallowed hard. "I don't want your shadow as my shield." "It isn't shadow," he replied, stepping closer. His voice dropped, low enough that only she heard. "It's choice. Mine. To stand beside what I value." Her heart stumbled. For a moment, she forgot the noise outside, the venom online, the whispers that hunted her. All she saw was a man whose life had been carved from power and danger, telling her she was something he valued. The silence stretched between them, fragile and fierce at once. That night, after the last customer left and the chairs were wiped down, Blessing sat by the mirror, untangling her own braids slowly. Min-suk lingered near the doorway, watching her reflection. "You said every braid is a promise," he murmured. She met his gaze in the mirror. "Yes. Then what promise do you keep for yourself?" Blessing's fingers stilled. She thought of Lego's son, her mother's prayers, her aunt's wooden comb. She thought of the shame that had tried to choke her, the storm of lies. And then she thought of the faces that had left her chair smiling, lighter, renewed. "My promise," she whispered, "is that I will never let anyone break me where my hands can heal." Min-suk's eyes softened, the gray darkening into something almost tender. He stepped closer, and for a heartbeat it felt as if the distance between protector and protected, between employer and employee, had thinned into something dangerous. But then he stopped, his discipline pulling him back like a leash. "Then keep it," he said, voice rougher than usual. And he left, the sound of his footsteps lingering long after the door had closed. Blessing sat staring at her reflection, her heart racing with a new, terrifying possibility. That somewhere between braids and promises, she and Kang Min-suk had crossed into a place where neither of them could pretend it was only business anymore. Promise House had grown louder in only a few weeks. The buzz of dryers, the chatter of customers, the laughter of assistants. It all wrapped the studio in a hum that felt alive. Blessing would sometimes stand by the window at dusk, watching the glow inside reflect against the night street, and think, "This is mine. This is real." Yet she knew shadows watched. The smear campaign had not died. It had merely changed shape. Online posts slowed, but whispers spread quicker, cutting through alleys and salons like smoke. One evening, as the assistants packed up, a sleek black car stopped outside. Out stepped Hannah, her razor-cut bob glistening under streetlights. She carried herself like someone on a stage, every step rehearsed. "Jiwan Nari Adeola," she called sweetly, ignoring Blessing completely. "I have offers for you. Madame Miare is opening a new branch in Gangnam. Twice the pay. Real clients with status. Not just outsiders." Her smile held venom wrapped in silk. Nari froze, lavender tips trembling as she tightened her grip on her bag. Jiwon shook her head firmly and pulled her scarf tighter. "I have a child," she said. "And I have peace here. That's worth more than double pay." Hannah's eyes narrowed. She shifted her gaze to Adeola, the youngest, her voice softening like bait. "You could be someone in Gangnam. No one there will sneer at your accent. Don't waste your youth hiding behind a foreign girl." Adela's jaw clenched. Her eyes darted to Blessing, then back to Hannah. The temptation flickered plain as flame. Blessing said nothing. She didn't beg, didn't argue. She only turned to Adeola and said quietly, "You know what your hands can build. Don't trade your roots for a shadow." Hannah's smirk sharpened. "Think about it," she purred and slid back into her car. The sound of the engine faded, but the crack remained. That night, Adeola lingered after closing, sweeping the floor with jerky strokes. Blessing watched her, heart heavy. "Are you angry with me?" Adeola muttered finally, not looking up. "No," Blessing said softly. "But you are angry with yourself. You felt the hook, and you don't like that it pulled." Adela's eyes glistened. What if she's right? What if this is all just borrowed shine because of him? Blessing walked over, took the broom from her, and leaned it against the wall. "Promise House was here before the city knew his name in connection to me. It was here in my heart, in my hands. He gave me a push, yes. But the walls are ours. The roots we hold are ours. Don't let anyone rewrite that truth for you." Adeola nodded, but her silence afterward was heavy. Blessing worried. Cracks in trust were harder to repair than split ends. Later that week, Min-suk visited after hours. He often did, under the guise of inspection. But Blessing noticed how he lingered longer each time, finding reasons to stay near her station. That night, she worked late, oiling her braids. The studio was dim except for a lamp. He entered without his usual entourage, only his shadow and the faint musk of leather and smoke. "You work even when no one is watching," he said. Blessing looked up, startled. "Of course. A craft doesn't rest just because eyes do." He stepped closer, studying her in the mirror. For the first time, his jacket was undone, his tie loosened. He looked less like a boss and more like a man caught mid-thought. "I have seen many people chase power," he said slowly. "Most use hands to take. You only use yours to give." Blessing's heart stumbled. His eyes lingered longer than they should have, gray softening into silver warmth. "Don't look at me like that," she whispered before she could stop herself. His mouth curved, faint and rueful. "Like what?" "Like," she faltered, heat rising in her cheeks. "Like you see more than hair." Silence pulsed between them, sharp and dangerous. For once, Kang Min-suk looked almost unguarded, as though the walls he carried around himself had thinned. "I do see more," he admitted finally, voice rough. "More than I should." Blessing's breath caught. The room shrank to only them, the mirror holding secrets too fragile for daylight. But then his phone buzzed. The sound cracked the spell. He straightened, the mask sliding back into place. "We'll talk later," he said, tone controlled again. Yet the flicker in his eyes betrayed him. After he left, Blessing sat alone in the silent studio, her heart thundering. She knew what she had seen. Not just a man protecting his favorite stylist, not just a mafia boss flexing power. She had seen longing, raw and unspoken. And she feared it almost as much as she wanted it. The weeks that followed tested Promise House like fire tests gold. Rumors swirled, competitors whispered, and Hannah's sly visits seeded doubt wherever she could. Adeola wavered but did not break, and under Blessing's quiet guidance, the assistants grew into pillars of the house. Clients kept coming, more than before. Every braid, every twist, every crown of hair became a silent rebellion against lies. But Mireille had not finished. One gray morning, she stormed into Promise House herself, Hannah and Sujin flanking her like crows. Cameras followed. She had invited them. Blessing realized with a sinking heart. "This is the thief you all defend," Mireille shouted in Korean, pointing at Blessing. "She seduced the Mafia boss. She steals clients, she steals businesses, and she will ruin this city's salons." Her voice cracked under the strain, but the cameras feasted on her performance. Gasps rippled among customers. Blessing stood tall, her braids glinting in the light. For the first time, she did not feel small in Mireille's presence. She felt like stone weathered smooth by storms. "You planted the clutch in my drawer," Blessing said softly, her voice carrying more weight than shouting could. "You tried to break me because you could not outwork me. You lied because my hands spoke louder than your words." Murmurs rose. Mireille's face twisted, but before she could strike back, the door opened. Kong Minsuk entered. Not quietly this time. His men followed, black coats slicing the room like nightfall. He walked straight to Blessing's side, his presence towering, undeniable. "She is mine," he said, not as possession, but as declaration. "Not my mistress. My woman. My future. Anyone who raises a hand or tongue against her will find me standing between." The camera's word. Mireille's bravado shriveled under the gaze of a man she could never intimidate. His eyes cut through her like frost. "You have 24 hours to disappear from this industry," he said, "or you will not have a name left in this city." By the next day, Mireille's salons had closed. Her investors fled. Her name vanished from advertisements. She was not seen again in Seoul. With Mireille gone, Promise House bloomed. Customers tripled. Bloggers praised Blessing as a pioneer. Her assistants found pride where they once found shame. Even those who had mocked her name now whispered envy. "Have you heard?" they murmured. "The Nigerian girl? She is the most sought-after stylist in Seoul. Even the Mafia boss bows his head to her hands." Blessing ignored the envy. She only cared that her house was full, her women were strong, and every crown leaving her chair carried truth. One quiet evening, when the last client left and the plants by the window leaned toward the moonlight, Min-suk stayed behind. He sat in the chair, his locks loose, his gray eyes softer than she had ever seen. "You saved me," he said suddenly. Blessing laughed gently. "You are a man feared across this country. How could I save you?" He leaned forward, his gaze steady. "Because power can control cities, but it cannot quiet emptiness. Every time your hands touched my roots, you reminded me I am still human. You gave me peace. And now," his voice dropped, almost breaking, "now I cannot imagine a life without you." Her heart ached, full and heavy all at once. She reached out, fingers brushing the lock with the thin gold cuff she had placed there months ago. "Then let's not imagine without," she whispered. He stood, and in the quiet of Promise House, he kissed her. It was not hurried, not desperate. It was steady, like the hands that twist braids with patience, like a promise meant to last. Months later, Seoul gasped at the spectacle. A wedding unlike any other. Kong Min-suk, the untouchable Mafia boss, married Blessing Okon, the Nigerian stylist once mocked and shamed. She walked down the aisle in an elegant white gown, her braids crowned with golden cuffs that glittered like tiny suns. He wore a tailored suit, his locks neat, the single gold cuff gleaming proudly. Their vows were simple. "Every braid is a promise," Blessing said, her voice trembling with joy. "And my promise is to never let our roots break." "And mine," Min-suk replied, eyes burning into hers, "is to shield you not with shadow, but with my life." The city talked for weeks. Some sneered, some envied, but most marveled. Blessing, once framed as a thief and shamed as an outsider, had become the woman everyone watched. The stylist who turned prejudice into envy, lies into triumph, roots into crowns. Promise House expanded, branches across Seoul, then Busan, then beyond. Women of every background found chairs waiting for them, hands gentle, voices kind. Blessing led with quiet strength, her assistants flourishing into masters themselves. At night, when the world quieted, She and Min-suk would sit together in their home. She would undo his locks slowly, oiling each root, weaving stories as her fingers worked. He would listen, gray eyes soft, the feared mafia boss content in the hands of the woman who had remade his world. And every time she touched his hair, every time her gold cuffs clicked softly against his, he remembered. The girl who began as the careful one had become his crown, his queen, his promise. Thank you for watching. Please kindly subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell icon so you'd get notified when we drop another video. Give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to share to your family and friends. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments and also share your thoughts about this video, and we will see you in our next one.